get started with the team meeting. So I know we might have a few people coming in, but just wanted to say thank you guys for coming. So Diane is in charge of getting our guest speakers or our speakers that we have for our team meetings. And this meeting, we're kind of switching it up, which is good. So we're actually going to have our OT department do a little presentation about OT, and so we can all kind of learn more about it. Oh, I think I have the agenda too. We'll go through the agenda quick. So we'll talk about OT, average daily census, staffing update. We always just give a little staffing update. Welcome some new employees to our team, talk about Press Ganey, direct supervisor communication, Civilitas, infection prevention. Case management is doing a presentation today as well. Talk about Vina and Rover, personal phone use, teamwork, net promoter score, CPI move of the meeting, so that's Marina's new thing that we've been doing. Roles and responsibilities of a preceptor, falls, and then we end with our staff pickup drawing, which we normally do. So with that being said, I will turn it over to our OT department.
Actually, Devin's taking over this part.
Oh! I thought you guys all were coming up.
No.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll turn it over to Devin.
I don't know if you guys saw, there was a bus that just went by. That was me. So. Alrighty.
Hold on.
Oh.
I was saying I got thrown under the bus. Okay, so with the show of hands, who knows what occupational therapy is? Yeah, good understanding, right? Yeah. Okay. How many of you have seen OT outside of here, or have heard of OT outside of here? Yeah. So, those of you who raise your hands, we're best friends. Alright, so what I want you to do is I want you to picture, I want you to think of everything you've done today since you woke up. So this could be getting dressed, eating breakfast, driving to work, catching up with friends, your coworkers, if you got your child ready, anything you did this morning, just think about it. And then I want you to pick one activity that you did. Now I want you to imagine this. How would you get dressed if you can't reach your arms above your head? Or how would you eat breakfast if you couldn't hold utensils? Or how would you perform at work if you were hearing voices like some of our patients here? Just kind of sit with that for a moment. Think about how you do it. So that's where OT kind of comes in. So we look at occupations. And a lot of times people think occupations are work. Like, I'm going to help you get a job kind of thing. But occupations are anything that occupies your time. So that is sleeping, it could be working, your ADLs, your IDLs, playing with friends, education, all of that are occupations. And we as occupational therapy practitioners help people get back to their meaningful activities. So occupational therapy, we take a holistic client-centered approach when providing care to patients to help them return to participating in meaningful activities. This is by either relearning lost skills, so say you had a shoulder surgery and now you have to learn how to use your shoulder again. It could be a stroke, to learn how to adapt or learn new skills to perform those activities, or maintaining current skills to prevent further loss. This is with patients with ALS, dementia. We can't make them regain or learn new things usually, but we can help maintain so they don't lose it as quickly. So according to the American Occupational Therapy Association, occupational therapy practitioners are either occupational therapists like Kelly or Michaela, or occupational therapy assistants like myself, Maddie, Ella. We are skilled in healthcare. We are skilled healthcare professionals. We use research and scientific evidence to ensure our interventions are effective. We also are very highly trained too, so we can do risk assessments. That is affecting your mind, body, and spirit using a holistic approach. So, as many of you have raised your hands, we are in different settings. We work in pediatrics. This would be outpatient. This could be schools, birth to 3. We work in hospitals, so acute care, IRD, ICU, the NICU. Obviously, we work in inpatient, psychiatric facilities, outpatient facilities, home health, skilled nursing facilities. There are OT in prisons, VA clinics, vision clinics, and community centers. There are also a bunch of non-traditional settings where OT are very adaptable and kind of mold their way through. I don't know if you've heard of hippotherapy before, so that's horse therapy. OT works in skilled settings like that as well. And before I continue on, I also forgot to mention, there are like fidgets and stuff like that sat out there. They're not for you to look at. You can use them during the time being if you want to. Also, feel free to like get up and walk around while I'm talking too, because I don't know about you, but sitting is hard for me. So feel free to do that. Okay. So what do occupational therapy practitioners do? So we work with a wide variety of patients, whether it's with physical needs, sensory needs, or cognitive needs. We work on gross motor skills, fine motor skills. For example, in the schools, we work on handwriting a lot. We work on sensory processing skills, which we'll kind of dive a little further into in a little bit. Social skills, cognitive skills, and physical skills too. This is a very condensed list of everything that we're trained to do in our schooling. So we can do formal, informal assessments, goal settings. All of our interventions are normally activity-based. You don't just see us usually doing like, now do a curl, like go up. You'll see us now reach into the closet, lift it out, those kind of things. So they're very activity, functional based interventions. We can do cognitive assessments and treatments, MOCA, slums, we're all treating those. We do group programming, social emotional skills, return to work support, developmental communication skills, independent skills, such as like cooking, cleaning, those things. You can also get specialized in dry needling. We can do custom orthotics, so if you have a hand or wrist injury, we can build those orthotics. We also are trained how to take and assess vitals, because it's a very important thing for us to do, especially in the ICU acute care setting, if you're working with like a cardiac patient and you're getting them up and changing positions. So these are just some pictures, because I like pictures, just to kind of show different things we do. Right here, they're making orthotics. There, there's a little baby, favorite, working out primitive reflexes. Over here, this one I thought was really cool and I wanted to point out. So the occupational therapist is actually blind herself and is helping other patients with vision issues too. So all different areas, work on all different things. So what specifically is the role of OT in mental health? Because we have a whole wide of things we can do. So occupational therapy, being that it is a holistic practice, we already look at the mental health aspect of every one of our patients. Whether we are in a school, whether we're in a hospital, we look and consider their mental health, because we see the person as a whole, mind, body, spirit. So it's just kind of a unique setting where we already look at how that impacts. For psychiatric occupational therapy, it does vary from place to place. So what we do here is different than what Winnebago might do. But our main goal is to increase the insights of the conditions of our patients, as well as providing tools and teaching skills to manage their disorder in everyday life. This can be done through very different things. Some are role functioning, leisure engagement, work training, interpersonal communications, so on. There's a whole bunch. here specifically at BPC, we do kind of base just around this. So we do psychoeducation classes sometimes, such as relaxation, stress reduction, emotional regulation, self-care, all of those. Sensory exploration is one that I'm going to highlight, just the importance of it, as well as our media projects that we do, because a lot of what we do are arts and crafts. We're not art teachers. And expressive activities and recreational activities. So I'm going to highlight sensory just because of how important sensory is and how little is known about it or how little it's addressed. So if you think of our senses are obviously sight, smell, taste, touch. But there's also vestibular, proprioception, interoception, and neuroception. So vestibular, it's like your balance. Proprioception, knowing where your body is in time, pressure. Interoception is your body's ability to know what's going on inside. So this is your hunger, this is headaches. It's telling you something's going on inside that you need. And then neuroception is the ability to be aware of safety or danger as well too. So sensory processing difficulties really impact all aspects of life. Mental health, social, emotional, physical, motor planning, participation in activities, and your self-image. This is because our sensory system is baseline used for survival. And if we go back to thinking that if our sensory is off, now we're stuck in this fight or flight mode, and we need to get ourselves back into or out of survival mode. So our goal for sensory with OT is to get people into a state of well-being, which the CDC defines it as physical, economic, social, developmental, and activity participation, emotional, psychological, life satisfaction, domain-specific satisfaction, engaging activities. So well-being looks at all of this. And a big part of your well-being is through self-regulation. So this is through flexibility and responding to internal factors, so such as bright lights. Now, someone who is really sensitive to this, the bright lights may cause them to close their eyes. They're not going to want to participate in school settings sometimes too, or the noises can be too overstimulating. So it may look like they don't want to participate, but really they're just overwhelmed with the sensories or underwhelmed. So being flexible with that, learning how to integrate that and process that. Behavioral, emotional, physiological, and sensory, as well as cognitive, that's all plays a role in self-regulation. And ultimately, it just allows us to feel safe and in control, and helps us feel that sense of well-being. So how does this apply to our clientele? So the first one that comes up, it's important to recognize neurological thresholds. So that means how much or how little a person needs to function. So some people are here, they need this much stimulation to be able to work at a normal pace. Some people are here, where they need that decrease to work at a normal pace. Some people are just in the middle. So passive and active self-regulation. So active regulation is, you will see people covering their ears because it's too overstimulating. I need this to stop, I need it to stop. Running away is an active response. Passive is somebody who's just like falling over and sleeping in class, or just like dozing off, disassociating. That's more of the passive. And then there's quadrants. So if someone has a high threshold, but they're very passive with their regulation, then they're going to have low registration. And then if they have high and active, that's your sensory seekers. So if you see kids bumping the walls, touching everything, putting everything in their mouth, all that kind of stuff, that's because they have that a different level, especially with mental health. So mental health and sensory go hand in hand. For example, anxiety, somebody who's very anxious may be in that sensation of voiding. They don't want to touch these things, they're too anxious, there's too much stimulation. Or somebody who is more depressed, they have that low registration, they need to have more stimulation. If you think of like a weighted blanket or something like that, just to help them with that. So it's important to kind of assess your patient on where they're at, because obviously sensory is not a one size fits all. And then specifically with our population, we see a lot of patients who have some sort of trauma. One interesting thing that I've learned is, especially when you're developing, if you experience trauma, it takes your typical development and flips it on its head. So normally, survival, regulation, social emotional cognition, that's how we progress. But once you have that trauma, when you are still developing, it flips it, and now you're in a constant state of survival, and the stairs are so much harder to get up to that cognition, reasoning aspect of it. And so this just also goes with learning your comfort zone. So our goal here is to get our patients into that comfort zone. Because if they are hyper aroused, again, anxiety, they have that fight or flight response going on, or if they're hypo aroused, or they're disassociated, they're just depressed and stuff like that, that's not the best state for them to be learning new skills. Our goal is to try and get them up into that so they're able to be ready and prepared to learn as well. And that goes into, I don't know if anybody's heard the 3 R's, but it goes into the fact where it's hard to be in your logical brain and your emotional brain at the same time. So people call them their upstairs brain and your downstairs brain. With this, it says it's based on children, but it works on a lot of others. The first step you have to take, especially here we see, is regulating. So that's just like, hey, empathizing with the patient. That would be where like sensory stuff kind of comes in. And then you relate to the patient and be like, hey, I can understand where you're coming from, or I've been here, like, that's where that comes in. And then finally reasoning. Because I don't know about you, I have a child, and he's acting up and be like, no, you can't do that. He'll be like, okay, I'm gonna do it anyways, and then like throw a fit kind of thing. But if I be like, hey, you have really big feelings right now, I see that, I would feel this way too. Sometimes I get that connection with him, and then we can go on to the reasoning on why jumping off the counter is not a good idea. So, not that I learned from experience. So that, again, is where we look at for OT, that holistic approach, meeting patients where they're at. So this is just a cool little video that I have of a sensory room. It is based in a like hospital setting, but it applies. So.
Just kidding. You just hit
just
browse
kidding.
YouTube, it usually works.
Yes.
Or you can just look at the, oh my god.
Linda Masbauer is one of the world's leading experts on multi-sensory environments. The upstate Golisano Children's Hospital in Syracuse is among the few hospitals in the US to have one for specially designed rooms. Every element within these walls has a purpose, getting young patients to a state of absolute relaxation to improve their medical condition.
I want you to bring in that stress level, increase the pressure, all right? You're to focus, and that focus is then amenable to learning. And that may be an emotional learning, maybe talking when you didn't talk before, or in a case of dementia, it might even be recalling a memory.
Here's the controller. You go on.
Nick, who's 8, is visiting the sensory room for the first time. His tutor, Beth, introduces him to this universe of colors, music, and sensations. After only a few seconds, Nick is captivated by all around him. The room was designed to give the young patients a positive environment to help them cope with the disease and often long-term treatment. It's both playground and safe haven.
We have a lot of children that are having a really hard hospitalization. They're your typically developing child, but once they get into the hospital, they may regress or they may become kind of introverted, and we may want to bring that out. Or we may have a procedure that goes horrible as far as the child's point of view, and we may bring them in here to bring their anxiety down.
It's dancing to the
A state of relaxation is said to foster learning and development. Some people with behavioral disabilities find it very difficult to stay focused and develop their mental faculties. The multi-sensory environment helps them get that focus and boost their intellectual abilities.
We usually study things in just the visual system, the auditory system. We know now that the overlap is tremendous. I often tell my audiences 1 + 1 = 3, because nothing is linear anymore. That's the whole idea of multi-sensory.
After a while, Nick is totally relaxed. The aim is that he learns while playing, forgets about being in hospital.
They just focus on one thing, so if something's bothering them, they can't clear their head and get that out of there. So this would help because they have other things to distract them.
The specialist room helps children learn to cope with pain or disability themselves. It's hoped that they'll be able to use the coping abilities acquired in this environment in the outside world when they eventually leave hospital.
That's just kind of a brief overview of the cool, like, snooze living room too. But it just emphasizes the importance of sensory and how it can be such a good modality to use with treatment, whether it's physical, mental, cognitive. And also a big thing is it promotes that independence too. So it's not, I'm telling you how to treat yourself right now. These are your coping skills you need to use. It allows for that person to explore and gain that confidence in themselves as well. So moving on to media projects, which is the other fun part of OT. So what you see here is a Vita keychain, our gecko and our turtle. Pretty nice looking. Good job, Maddie. But what we see is a level of creativity, problem-solving skills, your memory, level of cognition, thought process, occupational performance, self-awareness, executive functioning, ability to follow instructions, attention level, ability to multitask, your motivation, effort, your expression of your own self, social participation, engagement in meaningful occupations, and achieving a sense of accomplishment. All in that simple little task. It may look different to each patient. Again, we try to be as client-centered as we can, especially in a group setting. But those things as well. A big thing for OT is healing through doing. That's my favorite way of explaining OT. So it may be a simple like coloring picture or something like that, but it's so much more to the patient. So this is going into the group. What does an appropriate patient look like for an OT session? In our head, perfect world, the patient will be cooperative, willing to learn, ready to socialize, open-minded, not aggressive, sober or not demonstrating any psychotic symptoms. Obviously here, everybody here is usually like an acute state of crisis of some sort. Not all of our patients look like that. And so obviously that's what we're here for, to help and work with them. But there are times where patients aren't appropriate for our setting because unfortunately we don't have time to do all individual OT sessions, which would be wonderful. But because we do it in a group session, big thing is safety and a therapeutic environment for all of our patients. So we want to make sure if a patient is currently in an active state of psychosis, sometimes OT is great for them to kind of help bring them in or distract them, but sometimes because they are internally preoccupied, we just don't know. Sometimes a project can trigger something. Then all of a sudden our projects are flying across PICU or because we have these materials with them. Or it could increase more symptoms. It just really all depends on the patient. Same thing with like aggression. If somebody is aggressive already and we bring them down to OT, all of a sudden something happens where they make a mistake on their own project and now that project is going flying across our OT room too. And so that's just, it's hard to have a therapeutic environment for everyone when that's happening. So again, it's just important. Next slide too. I don't know if you guys have heard like Maslow's motivation model or like hierarchy of needs, that base level of like that physiological needs such as like detoxing. Somebody who just comes in and is detoxing, I don't know about you, but if I was really hungover, I probably wouldn't want to go and do like a craft, you know. But there's that fine line. There's like a gray area of where is it appropriate and not appropriate. Maddie.
Can I just add to that, because just to support you on that? So in other words, to what Devin is basically saying, there are times through our own professional assessment that we are going to say that a person is not appropriate to come to OT and join. For our own safety, sometimes our license, we need to keep all these other people safe with them as well. So just to kind of realize that we are really trying to look at everything to make sure that we can have a successful group.
Yeah. Because it's not like we're just like, yeah, we don't want that person to go in our group.
Yeah.
It's, we've already assessed, we've done a chart review, we've looked at the patient, we've talked with other members, and we've realized maybe this isn't the best time for that patient to. Because also forcing a patient to come to OT when they absolutely don't want to could also lead to more problems. Now, it's not saying that patients who are like, I don't want to go to OT, we're just like, okay, cool, great, like you don't go. We still encourage, we support, we will still work through that, but there are just those extenuating circumstances like Maddie had said. So how can you advocate for OT here? This is Michaela's elevator speech. Occupational therapy helps you with occupation of life. What's meaningful to you, basically. So that's all in a nutshell what OT is. We really just want our patients to be the most independent, successful self that they can be. Questions, comments? Ella, Maddie, I missed anything? Jana, just want me to get off?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are there any plans in the works for like ways we can maybe, as unit staff incorporate some of maybe the sensory?
Yes, that is in the works. It's still in like the process of working of it. We're hoping to get a sensory cart shortly here soon. So, well, not shortly here soon, but in the future, get like a sensory cart to start off with, where it can be used for patients. Like, so instead of being in a reactive state, you can be proactive and be like, hey, I see you like bouncing your leg more. I'm like, here, do you want to wait for like something like that? If that makes sense. Hopefully, in the works.
And with the gym renovation for like black tie blue jeans, part of that is a sensory room. So futuristically planning, there will be a sensory room in the gym. But then we've talked about like a mobile cart so you can bring things to the patient because maybe they're not appropriate to walk down to the gym, but you can meet them in the middle with a cart or however that looks. So.
I mean, do they have it to appropriate that start up? I'm just curious. Is it just 24 and 5?
So I think we're supposed to know, and you guys that were at Black Tie Blue Jeans, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're supposed to know how much we raised very soon. And then I think come October, they're gonna be looking at like our plans specifically and then plan out the renovations in phases. So depending on what phase that falls into, I don't know, like, I don't know the order of how it'll go, and then it's because it's the gym and the courtyard. But if we can at least like look at prioritizing, because like to me the sensory room, obviously I think we can all agree we would love to prioritize that. So could that be the first thing? I don't know. But I think October is when the plan is to look at the projects and plan phases.
And the phases too are because, even though Black Tie Movies is gonna give us a lot of money, that's awesome, it's still gonna be much more money than what we're gonna get from Black Tie Blue Jeans, so that's why we have to do phases. Like the floral alone is gonna be like, there goes our Black Tie Blue Jeans money, so it's kind of hard to say, for sure.
But hopefully come October, we'll at least have a plan of, because I don't know, like you said, 24, 25, 30, I don't know, but,
Just curious.
No, it's good.
There was anything specific?
yeah. Thank you for asking that.
Any other questions,
He's Evan.
Hey,
What is OT?
What is OT? Okay, do you wanna start from the beginning? Anyway.
Thank you very much. Good job, Donna. Technology is so fun. I would jump ahead, but I don't know what's next. Okay. So the next is average daily census. We review this at every team meeting. I know it's kind of hard to see with the lighting, or maybe it's just my eyes. But the 2023 line is the one that is incomplete. So if you can't differentiate the colors, you can at least look for the incomplete line. So you'll see, gosh, Ariel, were we above 25?
Nope. Just about 25.
Just about 25-ish so far. And you can see where we were different years, so 2021 versus 2022, we're kind of smack dab in the middle. So, I don't know, we just share that at every team meeting, it's good to be aware of. Staffing update, I don't know if you guys remember, I don't know if it was the last team meeting or the team meeting before that, but all of our open positions, it was like a full slide of a lot of words. So this is our newest update. Adult unit, we do have quite a few nurses, nurse openings. SNTs, we have two full-time PHSs, it's Georgia's position, and then Trinity's position now that she transitioned to TF. CNA, 4 full-time, 2 part-time. Child adolescent unit, we have no open nursing positions. I don't remember the last time that we've had like no availability on a unit for a certain position for the unit staff, so that is really exciting. 1 SNT available, and then BHS and CNA is a little bit of full-time, a little bit part-time. Intake, if you guys remember like a year ago, our intake staffing looked a lot different than what it looks like now. We had pretty much all of our nursing positions open, so that has changed. Right now we only have 2 part-time available openings. If anyone's interested in intake, we could always merge the 2 and make a full-time, so don't let that deter you if you are interested. Intake specialists, we have 2, and then we do have the bridge CNA posted. Just as a reminder, I sent an email out, but that position is straight PMs, but it's only Monday through Friday, no weekends, no holidays. It's really to help with the busy admission times. We know PMs are busy for admissions. That's just how our building operates. So that would really help with like safety searches, belonging searches, just helping with the busyness of the admissions without relying so heavily on our unit support staff. Well, unit staff in general, our nurses help too. So it's been posted for quite some time. We had 1 interview, but they ended up not being able to do the full-time piece of it. So just know that that's out there.
Then this slide is just to welcome all of our new staff that are either have recently started or are in the process of starting. A lot of them start next week, next Monday. And then congratulations to Nicole, Alec, and Joe for passing their med class.
Press Amy. So do you have the Word document too? I saved it under, sorry to throw you I'll cover that, okay. It's okay. She's gonna pull up the Word document. So press gaining, it used to be called the Pulse Survey. I feel like a lot of us kind of reference it as the Pulse Survey. But now it's press gaining. So the results came in. We were able to look at how we scored overall, and then the questions specifically that like we answered really favorably in versus the questions that we answered maybe not so favorably in. We got kind of like high level overall scores for those, so I have those to review with you. I might have to come sit by you because I don't know if my eyes are going to be able to read those questions. No, definitely not. I just wanted to kind of go through it overall with you and then share what the plan is. I feel like it's nice for you guys to see this piece of it because you don't just do this survey and nobody does anything with it. We actually get very centered results, and then we have to create like a plan based on our results. So I'm gonna come by you because I can't read that. Thank you. Okay, so the way it's divided out, is our unit staff and then also our case managers, therapists, and OT staff. So I'm able to share all of those results with you, but they're just divided out. So bear with me, I had to just copy and paste in a Word document because I didn't know really how else to share. So overall engagement, actually let me share this. On the right hand side, the red and like the gray boxes, that is in comparison to the overall organization. So based on everybody's responses, how the organization responded, it then compares specific departments to our overall, if that makes sense. So you can see for engagement, this is for the unit staff. We scored a 3.98. I don't think you guys can probably read those questions unless you have really, really good eyes. So we were favorable in regards to the organization, in regards to feeling that you would stay with the organization if offered a position elsewhere. Still somewhat favorable. Overall, I'm a satisfied employee. And then these four, I'm not gonna go question by question, but just to give you the gist. These four, we technically scored less favorable than the organization as a whole. It's more questions based on the organization. Would you recommend the organization? Are you proud to work for them, etc. So unit response was 3.98. And then this is just how it's divided out. So case management, therapy, and OT, 3.22. And then again, the questions. You guys will be sent this, so I'm not gonna go question by question, that would be a lot, but just so you guys can see like the overall. I'm gonna go much faster through the rest of these because then there's a summary at the end. So safety and culture, resources and teamwork. So this is talking about if employees feel they are well equipped, effective communication between departments. So we did fairly comparable to the organization in regards to teamwork with physicians, communication, and job stress. Not so favorable in regards to the department working well together, communication between departments, and staffing. So for the unit staff, this bottom one here is my department is adequately staffed. So that's the question there. Case management, therapy, OT, 3.26. You guys felt you are very adequately staffed, which is nice to see. So you were very favorable in regards to overall responses. Amount of job stress is reasonable, is pretty favorable. And then pretty similar to the unit response, the working well together between departments is more of in that red. Pride and reputation. Employees feel the organization places an emphasis on safety and would feel comfortable recommending their organization for patient care. This one is, there's two scores. I'm gonna say the 3.89. Oh yeah, 3.89 overall. Pride and reputation scored 4.18 specifically, just to that section. Somewhat or pretty favorable to the organization. Senior leadership provides a work climate that promotes patient safety. And the second one is again about safety. These ones are high quality care and again recommending the organization. So then overall safety culture 3.26, pride and reputation 3.1, and it's again the same question. So this one was a bit scoring of unfavorable for those teams. So again, safety and culture, but now flipping to prevention and reporting. 4.09, feeling they can report mistakes, feeling I feel free to raise workplace safety concerns, actively doing things on promoting safety. Those all scored relatively comparable. I'll just read the bottom one. In my department, we discuss ways to prevent errors from happening again. So that was one of the lower ones. Case management therapy OT, 3.34 for prevention. The best scoring one, in my department, we discuss ways to prevent errors from happening again. And then the ones towards the bottom, I feel free to raise workplace safety concerns. Where I work, the team works together to ensure the safest possible working condition. And when a mistake is reported, I feel the focus is on solving the problem, not writing up the person. So those were kind of the three lower ones. We're almost done. Resilience overall was a 4.32. Decompression specifically is 3.93. This is the ability to disconnect from work. So pretty favorable is I can enjoy my personal time without focusing on work matters. We kind of scored in between for some. And then the one that was not favorable was I rarely lose sleep over work issues. For our case management therapy and OT teams, 4.2 overall, 3.9 for decompression specifically. Quite favorable. I am able to disconnect from work communications during my free time, so like emails, phones, those sorts of things. And then the rest were pretty favorable. They're not red, so the other ones are pretty okay with that. Okay, I thought we were doing, they keep coming. The next one is activation. So activation focuses on finding meaning in the work that you do and focusing on patients or clients as individuals. These all are quite favorable in comparison to the organization. It's the work I do makes a real difference. My work is meaningful. I care for all the patients equally. I see every patient as an individual. So that's the unit. And pretty similar with the case management therapy and OT. 4.2, 4.48. My work is meaningful, and all the other ones are very close to being favorable. Diversity. So diversity, looking at overall assessment of diversity-based issues. For the unit, 4.24. The highest, I don't want to say highest scoring, but the most favorable, all employees have an equal opportunity for promotion regardless of their background. And then all these other questions, we were kind of right in the middle, that demonstrated commitment to diversity. The person I report to treats people equally, etc. This will be shared again. For the case management, therapy, and OT groups, the one that is a bit favorable is my coworkers value individuals with different backgrounds. And then these couple were considered less favorable in comparison to the organization in regards to being treated equally and valuing employees from different backgrounds and opportunity for promotion. Okay, we're nearing the end. So strengths, I'll just call out a couple. So for the unit, it points out how we scored what we scored the strongest in. I like the work I do. My work is meaningful, make a difference, treat everybody individually, care for everybody equally. I'm satisfied, feeling of accomplishment. I can enjoy my personal time without focusing on work. These are pretty similar for case management, therapy, OT. I like the work I do, meaningful, disconnect. My job responsibilities are clear. I see every patient as an individual. I care for people equally. Coworkers with different backgrounds. Staffing showed up on this one. Having enough time and the job stress is good, or not too much. So then we get to the concerns. So this is where we scored the lowest in, and these items are how we look at what like our improvement opportunities are or what we're going to focus on. So for the unit staff, I'll read through all these just because I think they're important. So for the unit staff, my department is adequately staffed. Different departments work well together. My pay is fair. Communication between departments is effective. Organization cares about employee safety. I'm satisfied with the recognition I receive. I trust the people I work with. I feel comfortable giving feedback. I'm involved in decisions that affect my work. And there is a climate of trust within my department. So those are the lowest scoring questions for the unit staff. Case management, therapy, OT group. The senior leadership team's actions support the organization, satisfied with recognition, communication with departments, so that one is duplicated. The environment makes employees want to go above and beyond, climate of trust, employee safety, those are both repeats again. I have confidence in my senior leadership team. When a mistake is made, the focus is on fixing the issue, not punishing the person. Different departments work well together, and employees who work here are seldom distracted from their work. Done. So that in a nutshell, it wasn't as quick as I was anticipating, but that is overall just kind of the results of the Press-Ganey. So from there, each leader has to identify an improvement plan of what they're going to do to focus on one of these things. For example, I don't know that I can focus on like pay. That's above me. I can be an advocate for it, but maybe that's not something that I have a direct impact on. But maybe like prioritizing safety, I could have an impact on, or So kind of looking through the list, what's duplicated, what can we work together on, etc. So that's the next steps. I don't know if next team meeting or the team meeting after that, probably we can then share those plans with you, or like what we're working on. But I just overall wanted to share this with you because like that's why we do the survey, so we don't just get your responses and do nothing with them. We do get the comments, so any comment that you made, we do get. It's just in like a document and it's worded, it's all anonymous. So we do have the comments, so if any comments really spell out like a safety issue or something, we could focus really specifically on that. But I just wanted to share kind of the high level overall updates with you guys. So this is what we get from the survey you took. So for those of you who took it, thank you. For those who didn't, please do next time, because we get a lot of good information from it. Any questions or anything? Okay, thank you. Now my legs are asleep. I'll just share the response rate too. So the unit staff, there was a 56% response rate, and OT therapy case management 63. So I think those were pretty standard in comparison to the organization, but I don't know for sure.
Okay, so direct supervisor communication. We are just asking for everybody just to make sure that if you have a question, problem, concern, just to make sure that you're following the chain of command, like as far as going to your direct supervisor. This way, then it'll help us to keep consistent. We want to be able to bridge the gap of miscommunications and duplication. I mean, if a person goes to all of us, we might assume that one of us is going to work on it when maybe we're not. I mean, maybe the other person assumes that the other person will complete it or work on it. So we want to make sure we streamline the process for follow-up. It just gives us a little bit of opportunity to bridge the gap as far as to help everybody with their concerns.
And we bring it up because we've had this happen where, someone comes to me, Stacy and Alex, and I think that Stacy's working on it, she thinks I'm working on it, and it turns out neither of us are working on it, and we obviously don't want that. So just a little plug to make sure you're going to the right people. We all work together, we talk, you guys, we communicate with you guys too, so just to help bridge the gap, because we did have a miss because we thought someone else was working on it when that wasn't the case. So.
Alright guys, Camilla class, I also can't see this that far away, so. This month's Civitas is on building trust. There's like a 3-minute video, so we'll just watch that real quick.
Hey everyone, Linda Gallup from Bellin Health coming to you with another Civitas message. So this month we are talking about building trust. Now, I think we all know how important it is to have trust in an organization, both with each other, with our leaders, and with the organization as a whole. And when we create that trust in the workplace, it's way more likely that employees are going to be committed to really reaching their full potential. So we know how important it is, and we know that it builds a really strong culture when we're able to achieve it. We also know that employees' trust in their leader greatly influences the perception of the organization. And we also know when we have trust in the workplace, it just improves morale among team members and those employees. So here are some tips to work on building trust in your team. So you can remember the acronym TRUST. So T stands for being transparent. We want to make sure that we're being honest and open whenever we can. And when people see that about you, you will be building trust. R is for respecting everyone. We know that a big basis of why we started Civitas was we wanted to make sure that we were being respectful to each other. So we want to do that in any way possible. U is for uniting the team. We need to collaborate. We need to come together on things in order to build trust. We won't build it by ourselves. S is for showing that you care. When someone feels like you care, they're much more likely to trust you. So whether you take the time to ask somebody about the project they're working on or something that's going on in their personal life, that starts to build trust, and it's a great place to start. And then the final T is for trust building activities. So whatever that looks like, again, the collaboration. So it might be doing the Civitas topic, or it might be having a celebration lunch. That also builds trust. The email contains some additional information on some tips for building trust. So we want to make sure that we are responding constructively to problems. It's important for people to know that they can voice concerns and that those things will be addressed. We want to do that constructively. We want to avoid micromanaging. When people feel like they're being micromanaged, they feel like they're not being trusted. So we want to avoid that if possible, and that's going to help us build some trust. We also want to make sure that we're protecting our coworkers. If somebody tells us something, we need to keep that confidential, make sure that we're not spreading that for whatever reason, protect those coworkers, and that's going to build trust. And then finally, we want to make sure that we're keeping our word. If we say we're going to do something, or we say we're going to look into something, we need to make sure that we follow through in order for people to know that they can depend on us and trust us. So we hope that you enjoy this month's topic and that you have great conversations surrounding trust. We encourage you to talk about what does trust look like on your team, and what are some things that maybe you can do to continue to improve that culture. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Alright, so I didn't put the acronym on here for trust. Some other things to consider when building trust is being honest and supportive with your team and your leaders and, everybody in your life. Respond constructively to problems. So if you have an issue with something, be like, I have an issue with this, but maybe we could try this. Giving those options to people can really help build that trust as well. Again, avoid the micromanaging, model the behavior you want to see. That good old fashioned phrase, do unto others what you want done to you. That's one way to do it. Protect your coworkers. If you see somebody blowing up on somebody else, speak up. Don't let it happen. It helps build your trust with that person. It also helps other people see that you won't tolerate that stuff as well. And then keep your word. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you don't say it, then I guess you don't do it, right? One other thing is if you're coming to us with concerns and we say, can you please email me that? Please email it to us, because if we don't have a pen and paper in our hands and we're not writing it down, we're dealing with 500 other things. We might forget it and then it doesn't get addressed also. So we we want to make sure that we're building that trust with you guys too. So if we don't remember to do it, if we're in the middle, like you say something as we're running out the door, I'm not gonna remember it the next day to write it down. So just send me that email, okay? Anybody have any questions on Civilitas? All right, awesome sauce.
Okay, so infection prevention updates. Okay, oh, yeah, she's doing it. So flu shots are due December 1st. They are optional for employees this year, so if you are opting not to get it, just make sure you fill out the declination. And then just remember, if you do get your flu shot outside of Bellin, you just have to submit that proof. Our employee health staff won't know that. So just remember, you have to submit proof of that. I don't know if other places have something similar like my chart. However, you can just get proof of that. Patient flu shots. We are now able to offer patient the flu shots. So please be sure to document in the admission navigator if the patient would like their flu shot or if they decline. So it's flu season again, so we'll have to remember that.
Yeah, just a plug for that. I know on child and adolescent we'll wait to ask the provider. If the provider says no, we still have to go in and put patient declines. Otherwise it triggers that we
That you didn't ask. And then hand hygiene. So hand hygiene compliance is trending downward. Monthly observation forms being turned in has significantly decreased. So the goal is it 100, right? I think it's 100. Per month, 100 audits. So there is a select few of us who do these, but if anyone is willing to also be an auditor, we would really appreciate it. I mean, we're all human. I feel like we all forget a month. I definitely forgot last month too. So there's our 0%. Yeah. So if anyone's willing to, it would be great. You don't need to like come in on your day off. You don't need to like do anything specific. If you're working the unit, just observe and document if someone washes their hands or you feel that they should have washed their hands but didn't. Part of the form is like reasons why or like what barriers. So an example was, I feel like the infection prevention people always give this as an update or as an example. So if someone's walking through and they're carrying all these things, are they able to like use the hand sanitizer or wash their hands? Probably not. So then like how can we avoid that? Does everybody have a pocket hand sanitizer? We are obviously different. We don't have the hand sanitizers outside patient rooms. So, you know, we have our own little barriers. So anyway, our compliance is kind of slowly dipping. So we just want to make sure we're doing our part. So if anyone's willing to do it, it's just a health stream you have to be a part of. It doesn't need to be nursing staff. If any of our case managers, OT, therapy, anybody can be an auditor. You just kind of pay attention to see if people are washing their hands and then just document. So.
And the form's super easy. It's just checking the boxes and circling yes, no.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna hand it over to Diane and Jody, or Diane, and it is specifically talking about case management at BPC, some goals, what that looks like. Hand it over.
Well, Sheena and Diane. Just want you to know, first of all, we're doing a little reorganization of the case management department. We are gonna be under the case managers for the whole system, so we are gonna be kind of joining forces with them. Jody is here. You want to wave, Jody? Jody is our team leader over the whole system. So you'll see Jody around here, and you'll see our case managers working with Jody and with me. So we want to talk a little bit about what we're doing here, just because I think there's a lot of people that don't know all the ins and outs of what we do for case management, and just want to take this opportunity to share that with you and to talk to you about how we serve our patients here. So the first thing that we work on a lot is our aftercare. And this is stuff we collaborate with the providers, including the therapists who do an eval on the patient, give us, you know, their suggestions for aftercare, the providers, and then the treatment team when we're in staffings with them. We then work with the families, with the patients. with outside agencies, and we make sure that we're setting up a follow-up plan that works for them, that works for their families, that works with their insurance companies, and so that we can do all the right things for them. We talk a lot to the families and the patients about what it is they want to see put together when they go home, and we answer a lot of questions. I will tell you the one thing we don't do is talk about medications. And we set medication follow-up appointments, and so sometimes we get those questions about medications. When we do, we generally say something like, we'd be glad to go through all the aftercare appointments, and as soon as we're done with that, I'll transfer you to the unit and let you talk to the nurse who's dealing with your patient, so you can ask them the medication appointments or questions. We try to, keep that pretty clear. We don't want to deal with medical stuff, so we let that go to the nurses. When we do the follow-up appointments, we make sure that we have records releases on the chart so that the records are going to the next provider. They're able to get the information they need to have a good follow-up plan with the patients. We make sure we put the appointments on the after visit summary. The other thing that you're going to start seeing more of, we do some of this already, but with the collection of the social determinants of health, we are going to be doing more recommendation type things on people's ABSs. Like I said, we've always kind of done this. I think we're just going to be highlighting it more. So if people are having food insecurity, we may be putting resources for food banks in their area, or if they're having housing issues, we may put in the housing agencies that they can go to get help in their area, those kind of things. When we're talking about releases, I want you guys to know we take releases pretty seriously. We do have some issues with people not filling them out correctly, and we hear about it from the agencies who talk to us and say, gosh, we'd like to release information, but whoever filled out the release didn't put in the dates, the patient's name, the name that they put. We get this one, I'm just going to share, it's my favorite one. The Brown County Crisis Center is the Brown County Crisis Center. They get lots of releases that say Family Services Crisis Center, they say Brown County Emergency Center, they say all kinds of things, and what they do then is call our case managers and say, sorry, we can't release information, and we end up getting a new release and sending it back out. It just delays care. So if you ever have questions about releases, any of the case managers would be glad to talk to you about, what's the best practice, what's the way to do it. Next. Court is a big deal for us. We have a lot of things that we have to coordinate with court, including getting recommendations from the patient's counties, getting recommendations from the treatment team here and the physician, sending those recommendations to all the appropriate parties. It's usually a corporation counsel who is the prosecuting attorney, it's the public defender, it's the county human services who are going to do supervision, it's the clerk of court who sets all the court appointments and those kind of things. We also do a lot of education with the families and with the patients about what court's going to be, what to expect, and to make sure that they understand what the process is going to look like. When I think when patients hear court, they get very scared. It's got such a negative connotation in the world, I guess. But mental health court is different. It's hopefully not as scary. You're still in front of a judge, but most of the time the judges are very respectful and polite and kind to our patients. They're working for the most part with attorneys that understand that system and are also very compassionate towards our patients. So we try to instill that knowledge with them. The one thing we ask is that if patients or parents have questions about court, please refer them to us. We know all the right parties, we know all the right answers, and we don't want them to be confused because it's a confusing situation. We also do a lot of serving court papers to people. We sometimes have to get a notarized signature just saying that we did give them all their court papers. And so if you ever see court papers come over the fax machines or anything, please make sure those get to the case managers. Very important that we get those all and get those back to the courts in a timely manner. We don't wanna disrupt a hearing, and sometimes they will not hold a hearing if they don't have all the paperwork they need from us, and that, you know, can lead to situations where a patient will discharge when they're not ready, or it can lead to situations where they go home without any supervision, and the supervision isn't always super intense when they leave here from a county, but at least knowing they have someone to fall back on, or someone that can call them, or they can call when they need help, is really important. We also just make sure the paperwork goes where it needs to go in Epic and all those places. On the ABS, we make sure that the patients who are discharged know who their county supervisor will be. Insurance, that's another big, huge part of our job. When a patient is admitted here, their initial insurance gets done by our business office, so they will do a phone call or a fax or an online submission as to why the patient needs to be here. The rest of that gets taken over by case management. So we have updates that are due depending on the insurance. Sometimes it's every day, sometimes it's every 3 days, sometimes it's only at discharge. Based on certain insurances, we know who needs to get reviews and when they need to get those, and that's what we do. We also can do specialty authorizations, so psych testing is usually one that needs a specialty authorization. If you get those orders and you're wondering about authorization, please reach out to the case managers. They can get those and assure you if they do need or don't need them. The important message for Medicare, you've probably seen this floating in the back of some of the patients' charts when they have Medicare, but it is a federal requirement that this form be signed within 24 hours of admission and within 48 hours of discharge. So our case managers work really hard to make sure that anybody who's on Medicare gets these forms signed in a timely basis. We sometimes sign them every couple days, but the necessary ones are 48 before discharge, 24 within admission. So, and then the more insurance. In addition to this, we do set up discharge transportation when it's necessary. We try to set VAO, which for those of you who don't know, that's a Medicare or Medicaid assisted medical transport. They're not always available, so sometimes we're just calling family members, sometimes we're calling taxis. But we also, if we're not around, those resources are also listed up in intake, so you can always reach out to intake to see, you know, what numbers you can call for transport if we're not here. We do a lot of community resource and building relationships. We, especially in the slow times, our case managers go out and meet with certain resources in the community, especially people that refer to us a lot and that we refer to, just so that they can put a face with the name and get to know us better. We know that we get better service and our patients get better service when our resources know who we are. We also do discharge placements for people not returning home. We help them establish with primary care physicians if they don't have one. And then we are involved in community groups. I put just a couple of them here. We're involved with an emergency detention, the EM1 committee through Brown County. Coordinated Services Committee is a committee that is a bunch of people who work with child and adolescents in the community. It involves schools, it involves human services, it involves crisis center, but everybody trying to figure out better ways to keep kids from ending up in the hospital. And then the homeless outreach, the HOTS meeting. We, on the adult unit, make sure that our patients have knowledge of advanced care planning, and if they have advanced directives that are not scanned into the chart, we make an effort to reach out to the families to get those posted on the charts also. We have some goals going forward that we're going to be working on. First thing is standardized care team assignments in Epic. So if you are not sure who the case manager is and you don't see a list on a wall, you should be able to hover in the chart and the case manager should be assigned there. So they're assigning themselves all the time. That's the best place to look. They attend staffings. We're working with systemizing coordination with Bell and Wide. We're going to be involved in their, or we actually already are involved in their monthly case management meetings, and then we're working towards doing some standardized documentation with that as well. We're also doing some cross-training. Thank you to Amanda, who's working with our ambulatory case managers so that hopefully next summer when we have low census, we'll be able to assist them even from right here. We can just do it on the computer so that we're keeping our case managers working and we're trying to help them with their patient load as well. So what we're going to be looking from you guys is if there are things that we can do to coordinate better with you, please reach out and let us know. You can talk to me, you can talk to the case managers, but we want to be working together as a team, and we want to know what we can do to make that improved here. All right, and that's all I have. Any questions? Caitlin?
Do you have any recommendations for, maybe it's for the unit staff, maybe it's 4:30 and public defender calls and they're pretty persistent about court paperwork getting done and yet they don't have a case manager available. Is that something where we might be able to coordinate with the hospital?
So this is, there's a couple answers to that. First of all, our case managers reach out to the courts first thing in the morning. They touch base with the courts and the public defenders throughout the day. If they're getting back to us at 4:30, we leave very clear instructions on our message that we're not here after 4:30. My hunch is they're just wanting to do their job now. I would recommend that you put that in the case manager's office. They make it sound urgent, it's not. There's no court that happens after 4:30. The court happens at 9 in the morning. So, and generally if it's a 9 in the morning court, they have the recommendations already. We have to have them to them, by 2 o'clock on the day before court, on the 9 o'clock. The Thursday court is at 1:30. So if they're calling at 4:30, you say, I'll put you into the case manager's office voicemail, and they can leave a message. They don't like that, and that's fine. But the reason, and I can tell you I've seen it happen, is that we've reached out to the doctor at 9 o'clock in the morning and said, we need you to put in your recommendation. And it's a note for anybody who's looked in the chart. There's an empty note that has a court recommendation. The minute we get that, we fire it off. If at 4:30 it's not there and we go home, it's not gonna be there. The docs have all gone for the day. So even if you get a hold of a case manager without the doctor having put in an order, we're not gonna get it. And they can get it the next morning and still have court. Sometimes I think that's a tactic that the lawyers use not to have to talk to the case managers. All the case managers are going, yeah, so as soon as we get the orders, we get them to them. It's not going to be urgent at 4:30 in the afternoon. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Okay, the next thing to talk about is Rover and Vina. So Danielle sent out communication about Rover a while back. So I know it's kind of flip-flopped, but I'm just gonna start with Rover. So Rover is utilizing like the Epic Rover app on the mobile phones on the unit. The system did share that they will not be replacing barcode scanners at our like desktops as they break. So that doesn't really give us a timeline as to how much longer we'll have them. So with that being said, we encourage you guys to start using the Rover app. I know we've talked about like the Marno the accessibility of the Marno in Rover isn't the greatest, and that's a pretty important workflow on child adolescent unit. So if there's any other barriers that you guys have in regard to why you're not using the Rover, or you use it but you really despise this reason, if you can just make probably like Danielle and Marina aware, I would say they're involved in the system meetings that kind of talk about this. So we know it's coming. Again, we don't have a timeline. So we just hope that we can get more familiar with using the Rover app before we're forced to, and we don't have the barcode scanners. So that's just my little plug with that. If you think of any barriers, just shoot an email, come talk to us. We just need to know, because the system asks, and we haven't really heard of many, but we just want to make sure we're passing that on, because our workflows are different. So.
And with the Marno, with that app pulling into the Rover, if you can go ahead, say you get a medication order on your shift and you're unable to get that consent, just go on the MAR and put it on hold, and then once consent is obtained, we can take it off hold. And if anybody needs help on how to do that, just let me know, I can show you how.
So yeah, any other issues, let us know. So then flipping to Vina. So Vina is the app on the phone that's similar to like what Vocera's used to be. So it's just a form of communication. It's very similar to like a personal cell phone. You can call people, you can text people. The nice thing is you can, I say text, but you know what I mean. You can send a message to the entire group. So I might not know who's working the adult unit, but I can send a text message to the adult unit, and everybody who's logged into the Vina app will get that message. So we are going to, I think it's like middle of October, we're going to officially go live with this, but we want you guys to play around with it in the meantime. We are going to have our intake department use the Rover phones and the Vina app for communication, because we're finding that when we call the unit to put a name on the board, the chargers might not be available, and we're really trying to streamline that process. But if the chargers isn't available, we don't want to necessarily call back, because we might forget, they might forget. And if we pass it on to somebody else, they might be in the middle of running to go get a blood sugar, then they might forget. So we've had it happen where assessments are coming, the phone call was made, but it got lost in translation for many reasons. You guys are obviously very busy. With this, intake can literally send a text message to child adolescent saying assessment scheduled for 1 o'clock, give the name, date of birth, SI, send. Everybody just got the message. So if Mallory's working and she's doing a discharge, she might not see the message till 20 minutes later, and that's okay because she saw it. Caitlin might be charting after a 1-to-1 and she got the message right away. It just helps make sure that everybody is on the same page. It'll also help decrease the phone calls. Those of you who have, well, the units get many phone calls too. There's a lot of phone calls that happen intake to unit, unit to intake, vice versa. With one patient alone, we call to let the unit know that we have an assessment scheduled. We call and let the unit know when the patient gets here. We call and let the unit know when we're going into assessment with them. We call and ask for someone to come for a safety search. And then if unrelated staff did the safety search, we'll call the unit and let them know we're coming back with the patient. So for one patient, it could be up to 5 phone calls, and that's a lot for everybody. So it's just gonna help streamline. So practice logging into Vina now. That's how you should have hopefully been before, because that's how our video monitor techs communicate, but we're just wanted to share that we will be doing, implementing it with our intake department too. So we're here to help. I know a few staff asked for a refresher. If you want that, absolutely, we can do some set ones, or just catch one of us. We can help. We all plan to be available really like when we start going live with it. This is totally new to intake, so intake never even had the phones to begin with. We just ordered them. So it'll be a learning, but it'll be really good. And I think you guys will like it once we get going with it.
Down the road too, there'll be some opportunities for us to work out with the ED in the same context where intake and the ED will have groups that they go back and forth into to make that similar to for everyone.
Yeah, and you can send names, that's what's nice. So I know the ED sometimes will send us like a Skype message with like initials, you know, but sometimes if you're in an assessment or talking to a doctor, you miss that Skype message. Whereas here, if you have the phone, you know, someone in the department will get the message. So it'll just help a lot. We'll still work with the process making sure everyone's in the groups they need to be in. There is a charge group, so if we just wanna communicate with all the charge nurses about something, we can do that. Unit specific, reversely, you guys can message intake if you have a question. Myself, the TFs, Marina, and Danielle will also have phones on us. So you don't have to know our personal phone numbers, you can just have us kind of at your fingertips with that phone. So if we're in a meeting or an interview or something, we can at least get the message sooner than if you sent us a Skype, basically. So practice now, please, if you haven't already. Let us know what barriers you have, what questions you have. But it's very similar to a cell phone, so it's sending text and calling. It'll be really nice, I think.
Also, if you're noticing problems with the phones or if the batteries are like going quick, let us know because then we can print tickets to get them replaced if necessary, or maybe they need an update and stuff like that.
One other thing is, leave the chargers on the back of the stations for those. I've noticed a lot of chargers have gone missing for those, because I think people are either using them to charge patient phones or their own phones, and then forgetting that they borrowed it from there. Leave them there. If you need to plug your own phone in, plug it in back there, and you plug into this thing. So you don't have to keep replacing them.
Speaking of phones, so personal phone use. So we have been pretty flexible in the past. Historically, we've all used our phone in the nurse's station, whether it be quickly checking like the phone in the drawer to see if you have a text. But it's gotten out of hand. There will be staff scrolling their phones, looking at Facebook, all that stuff. And it's led to an increase of patient complaints, which is definitely a concern and a problem. So we are going to move to keeping phones in the break room. Also with having to carry around the rover, you probably don't want to carry two phones, so hopefully that'll encourage staff to keep them in the break room. If you do need to check your phone periodically, please just do it in back. We don't want it being done in front of the patients. And then also hold each other accountable with this. So if I see Marina on her phone, I'll be like, dude, what's going on? Like, stepping back. If staff are not receptive to that, or if it continues to be a problem, it can lead to performance management, unfortunately. And then also we did give direction to our charge nurses. If they correct somebody's behavior with the phone and say, like, can you do it back, and they just continue to do it, we did give them the direction that they can send someone home if they're not listening. We'd rather provide great patient care than to have people distracted and providing like not great patient care, for lack of a better term.
And I think we've all maybe noticed the phones kind of getting out of hand, but like Alex said, we have had a few actual patient complaints come through, so that's where we really had to like stop, think, and be like, okay, like we have to share this information. So like Alex said, hold each other accountable. You don't have to be rude about it, but just remind people like, hey, like don't be on your phone. I think it's important to remember like our patients are here because they're usually in a pretty vulnerable place. You know, I think of like child adolescent unit, like they might not get attention at home, they might be struggling for several reasons. So if they look up and see staff scrolling on their phone in the nurse's station, it just doesn't really send the message that I think we all want them to receive. So we have been flexible in the past, but unfortunately, especially with the patient complaints, this really just puts it kind of on a whole different level, and we really need to make sure that we're not on our phones in the nurse's station. Our nurse's station obviously is covered in windows, so we can't have people scrolling through their phones. So keep them in the break rooms. We're all human. We all have lives outside of work. If you need to step in the back and make a phone call, step in the back a few times and quick check your phone to see if you have any texts. That's totally fine. We're not saying you can never look at your phone your entire shift. We're realistic about it, but just if you really can't be doing it in front of patients. So that's the big thing. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts? Okay. I think we're all on the same page. And I think we all think that, but sometimes we just get caught up in our personal lives. So flipping a little bit to teamwork, so I know Diane shared in her presentation that a goal of hers is to look at like the collaboration between departments and working together, and that's, I think, kind of a goal for all of us. So it was nice that OT was able to present today. I've talked to Marina, and we've kind of talked about shadowing different departments again. So for those of you who have been here for a while, prior to COVID, during your orientation, you used to shadow the different departments and really get a good understanding of what they do. With COVID, we went away from that, and we are now going to be kind of transitioning back to that. We found that there's a disconnect, and it's nobody's fault, but some people might not know what OT does because they've never been in a group, or like group therapy. Like, what's that like? What do the patients talk about? It's just an opportunity to see what everybody does, and then reversely, I think it would be great if new case managers, new therapists shadow the unit staff. Like, I just feel like everyone needs to better understand everyone's role, because we're all here for the same reason, to care for our patients, and we just do it in different ways. So the teamwork is going to be a big goal, I think, for everybody. Don't assume the worst. If I don't know, you interact with a nurse and you think, wow, they did that on purpose, don't assume that. Talk with them. Maybe there's a workflow that needs to be improved. All here for the same reason. Yes. So overall, if you have any ideas on how we can improve this, let us know. I really do think the shadowing in itself is going to be pretty eye-opening, because you don't know what you don't know. If you've never been a case manager, you don't know what a case manager does, and that's not your fault, but it'll help you better understand if maybe you shadow them for a couple hours. It won't be a full day, but just a couple hours, so then you get a good understanding. So that's the little plug for that. All right.
This is me again. We are doing, we do patient surveys that include the Net Promoter Score. This is, without getting too technical about it, we want people to give us 9s and 10s on their surveys that we did a good job. They take the 9s and 10s and subtract the 1s and 2s, and they get out of that a Net Promoter Score as to how well we're doing. And I just want you to know that this is our target line up here for both units. And as you can see, we are pretty much at target for both units. I will tell you, the last 4 months we've been at target. The only month that we weren't is in June. We were at 0 for child and adolescents. That is only because we had 0 responses. Nobody chose to respond. These are phone surveys, so they can choose to hang up or not answer or however, and they did. So I just want to say this is great. We've done some really subtle things to try and improve these. The latest has been that we put the posters up on the unit that you'll see, it'll say, please fill out our survey, and it's got a little explanation about the Net Promoter, so people can see that it's really important to give us 9s and 10s. If people ask you about it, tell them we want their honest feedback, but if they're here and asking about it, ask them, what could we do that would make your experience here be a 9 or a 10? Is there something we're missing that we could do to make things better? Because if we can get them to change their mind and love us before they leave, that's going to make our scores better. So, but no, I think we're doing fabulous, so thank you so much.
Something to share with that too is when they do their surveys, at the end, if they want to give a voicemail basically, or give some feedback, they can. Myself and the TFs get that feedback. If it's ever something that we feel really needs to be addressed, we do. Recently we got one just a couple days ago. It was a patient who was here involuntarily. They didn't have many good things to say, and it pretty much said that they were kept here against their will, which is accurate. Yeah, so when it's things like that, it's like, okay, did they score us well? Probably not, and that's just the nature of the beast. But we've had some give feedback, and we'll usually call the parent or call the individual if they give some specific feedback that we feel we should follow up on. So just wanted to share.
So every meeting we have to highlight a CPI move. So I chose to do the team control just because this is the year that we brought it back. So I know you guys all just went through refreshers, so it should be pretty fresh in your mind. But just again, the importance of making sure that if you are going into this position, that staff's hips are as close together as possible to support the patient. And then, obviously your patient's probably not gonna like wrap their arms and put their palms up easily for you, so being mindful that we're not like cranking their arm in an unnatural way. And then making sure that if we are gonna use team control, that we're synchronized and on the same page with our coworkers. Because it's a very vulnerable position for a patient, and if you're not doing it correctly or confidently, you could drop them on their face and you just deploy their arms. So, any questions on team control?
Everybody's refreshed, so good job.
Yes, should be really fresh in everyone's mind. All right, thank you. And then with our, we have a ton of new staff who have either started recently or are starting, so I just wanted to do a brief refresher on the roles and responsibilities of being a preceptor. So here it's part of like everyone's job duties that they have to precept new staff at times. So this applies to everybody. And it's broken down into the 4 main things that a preceptor should be, which is a role model, socializer, educator, and then also just tips for giving someone who gives feedback as well. So I won't read it all to you, but high level, it's just gonna be making sure that we're welcoming new staff and making them feel comfortable and giving them an environment where they're safe to ask questions. One thing too is to please make sure that I'm getting feedback. What's been happening a lot recently is that I'm finding out a lot of information about staff that is concerning after they're off orientation, and people aren't saying it. So I can't address it obviously if we don't know about it. So making sure that if you do get feedback, I do address it. And then to being specific and feeling comfortable to give your new hire that feedback in real time is much more effective too than if someone else comes in 4 days later to say, oh, I wanted to tell you this happened, and then they're gonna be like, what? Why didn't they just tell me that I did it wrong? People are more receptive to that too, and that kind of builds trust amongst your team as well if you guys can give each other feedback appropriately. And then, the bane of my existence and yours, I'm sure, the checklist. So this is very like DNV focused as well. If we have checklists where it's not the full date, like a lot of times it won't include the year, or people will do like the lines through it, which I totally get, because like a nursing checklist is 15 pages long. So I'm sure the desire to put lines through it is there. I totally get it. However, you'll have to go back and fill them all out. So please just make sure you're doing the full date and the initials. And then if you can kind of help your new hires remember to check in on those every couple of shifts, it makes it so it's not so bad that at the end you're not trying to fill out like 100 lines. So. With that too, just make sure that anyone who signs off a skill and initials it has to have their signature on the page as well. Now obviously most of our people are going to be with much more than 2 preceptors. So if those lines are full, you can just sign below that part on just the page. Any questions about any new hire stuff or precepting? Okay. Thank you guys all too, because I know that it makes your job harder when you're trying to do your job and teach people a new job, but I really appreciate it. Hopefully too, we're gonna build up our staff and then you won't have to precept anymore.
Alright, falls. I guess I'm doing this for Danielle since she's not here. Alright, so patient falls. There are so many things to do in an event of a patient fall. How do you remember it all? First thing, take care of the patient and address any resulting injury. Contact the provider and determine if the patient needs to be sent to the emergency room for eval. Once these have been addressed, what and where do you document? First, go to Epic and document that the patient fell and reassess the patient's fall risk. When documenting yes to the question, has the patient fallen this shift, a BPA will fire to do a 24-hour post-fall assessment. Start neuro checks for patients who have hit their head or are on anticoagulants. These orders are part of the policy and should be ordered if applicable. Complete the inpatient fall huddle and place on the front of the chart. Located at Julius, it's all in there. There's also one on the adult unit on the huddle board back there. You can always just make a copy of that bad boy. Enter an event into RO Datax under the Julius Quick Links under event management, and then root cause analysis will be completed if patient fall out in the courtyard, what was it, last year, broke her wrist. There was a big, huge root cause analysis that had to be done in regards to that because she had actually injured herself pretty significantly.
Yeah, the system, like quality people typically determine if a root cause is needed. If there's an injury resulting from it, chances are we will need to do one, just to see how we can prevent that from happening again.
Alright, so every month, we have still been doing like for staff and pickup, you get one entry, for each shift. So we do a drawing for a $25 gift card. So for June, LC won, July was Daisy, August was Autumn. So thank you everybody who's been picking up, we really appreciate it.
And we're gonna continue doing these through the end of the year. When we rolled this out at the beginning of 2023, the incentives didn't exist, and I know the incentives are a nice little added bonus for picking up, but we still wanna do this too, because it just means a lot. You guys know we were in a really tight staffing spot for quite some time, and if we didn't have pickups, I mean, we would have been able to help a lot less patients, so it means a lot, and thank you. That's it, was that the last it? Okay.
And one thing, sorry, this is a little teaser, if you could just put the fidgets back on the chair when you guys